Hello and welcome to the Friday wrap up brought to you by David Gockstein. I am your host, Landy, and today is July 17th, 2026. And we're looking at Bitcoin, of course, to start. And obviously, we talked about kind of what was going to happen earlier this week and the areas to pay attention to both the upside and downside. We did see one of those key areas actually get hit at 62 and a half, nearly to the dollar, right at the basis band at the time. We now are, of course, in the Saturday candle for the dailies. And yeah, so we're going to take a look at this. We're going to take a look at oil, Dixie. We'll take a quick look at traditional markets as well. And yeah, I didn't actually get out there promoting the live stream this week. Been very, very busy and been kind of all over the place. So um, might not have too many live viewers today, but if you are watching this back after the fact, please go ahead and like and share this video out there. As always, it is much appreciated. And there is a lot of valuable information that I have been putting out in regards to what to pay attention to in the markets, in particular, watching Bitcoin as a vector for the overall crypto markets. No matter what it is that you're into, you really should be paying attention to Bitcoin on the cryptocurrency side, because in general, where Bitcoin goes, the rest of the market will go. Um, Look, right now, Bitcoin's kind of in no man's land. It's right in between a major area of support and resistance between 62 and a half and $65,000. So the analysis really doesn't change too much from what I've been talking about. In this regard, if we do start to break down from 62 and a half, we have to be aware of the swings below and some of these closes slightly below around the basis band at the time, that we're coming in, roughly around $62,000 on the closes to that 62 and a half level. Now, can Bitcoin also come down and take some of the liquidity below the swings here, and be fine? Sure. But it will look like, anywhere below the last higher low now at 61,760 on any kind of closes. Not only would we already probably have seen the lower term time frame swing the actual lows down here just above 61 at 61 2 to 3, but more than likely on any closes it would probably try to go for at minimum the top side of the support zone, this big monthly area at $60,000. Now, of course, the monthly area is, 68 to, I'm sorry, 60,000 rather to 58.8 or so. And of course, when looking in this area to the downside, I had previously been talking about 58 to 60 as being the primary zone of interest that you need to pay attention to on closes. We did, of course, see a swing below 58. We saw a strike rate at $58,000 and then a swing below into the 57,750 area, but no close over close price momentum down there to push price down to the mid 50s and potentially lower. And in this case, right now it's all about watching this area, keeping an eye on 62 and a half. If we do even start seeing lower term timeframes start to close below there, pay very close attention coming into the daily on any kind of closes that could come in below the 62 277 close here, and especially below that 61 760 on closes, as that would break the smaller uptrending structure that we do have in place now for Bitcoin. And then, I'd be looking 58 to 60, anywhere below there. That would be expansion. That's where the lower third standard deviation is coming in. I would be looking for price to not only test the most recent low here at 57,750, but also come down to somewhere between 54 and 56 around these weeklies down here. And then anywhere between like 52 and a half to 54 is fair game. Of course, I've talked about this a lot. If we do see continuation of expansion below any weeklies, below the current lows and those weeklies down below, then of course I would be looking somewhere around the 48 to $50,000 level. Now, of course, I pointed this out many, many times, but 48 to 40 or so, $48,000, that is the bear market lower high that was put in back in 2021 into 2022. And that structure is what sent Bitcoin down. That was the first lower high after it was a lower high into a trend breaking structure, if I remember correctly. We'd have to go look, but yeah, for the monthly in particular. So, downside areas, very well worn territory in terms of discussions that we've had here on this particular show, the market update. And in this case, to the upside, it's pretty straightforward. We saw a swing right for the failed swing above the $65,000 region at 65 and a half, 65.6 or so. We saw that tagged. Now Bitcoin's come down to the bottom side of the range. We did not see any closes above this magical line here, this colorful crayon drawing, just above $65,000. Now, granted, we did get a close above 65, just slightly, $65,006, but the overall resistance is just slightly above there. And of course, we need to see closes above and continuation above that 65 and a half, 65.6 to go and test the next lower high, which is a front run of a major area, 68 to 69K, which of course is the topping area from 2021. But, if we did see any kind of closes above $65,000 in earnest that takes out the last high up here, I would be looking in general for the overall target, especially on any expansion above right now, about 66,000, 66,200. Or you could take the close open here at 66.3. Then I would be looking for a move to somewhere around to test somewhere around the $68,000 to $69,000, and then potentially up to the $70 to $72,000. Now, of course, there is about $2,000 at a time of overhead resistance up there. We've seen this area very well filled out in the order books as well for resting orders on the sell side, on the ask side. So it's you know about lifting the offer into those areas or hitting the bid to some of the areas down here where there is liquidity below the current range that Bitcoin's trading in, more towards the 58 to $60,000 level and lower. So right now, this is just a range, and we'd be looking for resolution of that range, and it's kind of in the middle of that range, between the 62 and a half and 65. So it's all about being patient and watching where the closes come in that actually get close over close price momentum out of this range. So nothing too crazy, nothing that we haven't covered pretty in depth here. And I would be, just in general, paying close attention to price action on the daily as it leads into weekly closes, which brings me to the weekly. So let's go ahead and check the weekly out here. Let me get the levels out of the way here. So we do have one drive of bullish divergence between the low side structure over here, where we have a failed low because of that swing high. You will see some indicators call it a low. The true closing low is actually this little bit of a higher low swing, equal low close over here. And then of course, this is a technical, it would be a technical closing low. It is a technical swing low set, a couple weeks ago, but we haven't seen the closing low set, and we need to see the closing low set. I want to see $64,000 minimum but realistically, what would you want to see for the close to actually see an actionable signal? It's going to be essentially 65, 6 to 7, right around that daily lower high that was or that daily the spike high, the previous spike high above $65,000, and then of course the most recent high that just came in above $65,000. Right in that area, we need to see it closed above, in my opinion, to see any kind of bullish divergence be actionable. And realistically, for any kind of hope of a trend reversal in this area, um, you would need to see quite a move off of this and then higher lows that can get bullish divergence set off of some of these other lows over here and over here, which is actually a big ask for price action. So realistically, still looking for the potential higher probability play being another leg lower, even if we do see some further upside price action or a return to the mean. Now, when I say a return to the mean, I'm looking somewhere around the basis band, and that would put Bitcoin in that 60 to $70,000 area, potentially up to 70 to 72. And on the more aggressive side, you can look up to the 72 to 74, 74 to 76. And realistically, there is um, precedent that if we did start to tag in and around the 70s, it wouldn't be a big ask for price action to go and test the uh the the monthly higher low structure, which of course is weekly lower low structure over here. Now, the only way that things change on a higher term time frame, as I've mentioned many times now that we have seen the June closure that did close a lower high, this is not a low, right? The only way to set a low on the monthly technically would be above last month's high at $74,000. And realistically, that's not where you wouldn't want to see like a closure right at it. You'd want to see a closure above, and more realistically, some room up to that 76, 76.3, maybe even 76 and a half. But it wouldn't be until we saw something like a trend breaking close above the 82.8, which of course was a retest of the higher low close over here from last year when we had the confirmation come in from March to April. So, that would be a structure change, but as it stands right now, we need to see a low set, right? And then if Bitcoin were to close like this right here, right now, then it would be set a low anywhere above this month's high, which would be around the 65, 6 to 7, 5 to 7 region, depending on your chart. Of course, this is index, but it's a move still in motion, and this is this through a bear div, um, a confirmed lower high trend reversal setup after a lower low trend break here. So until we see a low set, it's a move still in motion to the downside. So you know the probabilities still favor the bears in at least another leg lower. And then, if that isn't going to come to fruition, then we just move with the price action from there. And as it stands for Bitcoin, there's not much else to say. It's kind of boring. It's kind of boring right now. Not a ton of volatility. You saw obviously a lot of fear in the markets and a lot of talk about micro strategy and all this stuff. But as soon as Bitcoin moved off the lows, everything's kind of calmed down. People are getting bored and kind of hunting around other networks. Obviously, the big Robinhood network launch and stuff like that. So you know, um, it's been kind of quiet in that regard. Let's go ahead and take a look at oil, because I do think it's important to watch what's going on with oil. We've had we had the areas of interest that I was talking about um, now start to hold up. We had the move where I was looking for and spec this out pretty early on when we were, kind of looking at the lows. We got our close open settle in right on that big monthly zone, right around $68 a barrel for WTI, and then I was looking for the possibility after, a high, kind of coming up to overhead resistance. It got front run a little bit, but then coming back down to support. We got that fairly quickly on the daily, coming in on the 10th, tagged the support there in the $70 range, and then right up through to the 76 to 80. And then we did see it push above 80 now. And it is kind of, starting to threaten that mid mid to low $80 region. So 84 to 86 is the next place to look to the upside. But if we do start to see it closing back below around 76, 76.50 or so, I would just watch it carefully around, the 72 to 73 area around the basis band. If it does drop it, then I would look for potential structure changes, of course, below the higher low over here. So essentially, we had a lower high to higher low trend reversal setup, and now we've got oil pushing and expanding in terms of volatility after a bit of a mean reversion and compression back to the upside. Anywhere above the mid 80s, looking 88 to 90. That would be something to pay very, very close attention to, because if we did see, not just the 84 to 86 taken out, but if we start to get full on expansion towards 88 to 90, that really opens up the 90 to 95 level. So be very, very aware of that. Obviously, in an environment like that, the further out on the risk curve you go, the more likely we're going to see downside price action. And of course, no matter what your feelings are about Bitcoin, the way the market treats it is as a pretty far out on the risk curve asset. So keep that in mind. And in this case, you know, I would also say keep a close eye on Dixie. Dixie came down, and as oil was kind of sitting in that range and kind of confirming it as support to take off, what did we see? Dixie came down to the to swing the $100.40 region, and then found it as support and bounced up with oil. So we saw lower term time frame correlations between Dixie and oil in that respect. So I would keep a close eye on it. If you want to see a more amicable risk environment, you probably want to see oil coming back down along with Dixie getting below about $100. So um, that would look pretty good for, you know, risk, risk on in this case. So let's take a look at SPY. Um, we're doing exactly what I described pretty early on with SPY. And that was, watch for a consolidation at the highs. And the criteria remains the same. For SPY, you need to see closes above. Now the criteria is going to be above 760. That gets continuation to 765 and above. Um, and you'd want to see close over close continuation to break out to new highs, or else this is in danger of, getting a larger consolidation that eventually dumps off to the downside. Now, of course, can it range around and then find its footing and find its way back to the upside? Absolutely, sure. We had, the lower low, higher low close as it related to the low side structure over here, right? But we had a big old trend break. We had a lower high, lower low swing with a higher low as it compares to the lows over here. And then we had a short-term time frame grind out back to the upside here with no clear conditions being met to actually break out back towards the highs and higher, which is what you need to see. Now, that's still a possibility that we see it break out back to the highs and potentially a little bit higher, but you need to see close over close expansion, or else the danger is that we repeat what equities like to do, and that's grind out the highs, go into a larger compression. You grind out the highs, have some volatility near the highs, start grinding back to them, making slightly new highs, but then break down from that structure and get a larger correction. So be very, very aware of that being a possibility as we progress through the summer months. And to the downside, I mentioned, the higher low structure over here, 748, 750 area on closes. If we start to see that breaking down, well, we have lower low. It doesn't matter that it's a green candle. If we do start to continue or get a lower high, if we come back up and fail above these highs or just swing them around the 755, 756 and don't close above, then I wouldn't necessarily be looking for a shot at 760, 765, and then for continuation. Um, and be aware of any kind of downside moves that bring SPY back to the 730 region by the lower second. If it starts to, bounce and then form lower high structure there, then we have to pay very close attention to the 720, 725 area. And then I'd be taking it, 5 to 10 points at a time to the downside, 715 to 710, and then eventually down to test even 695 to 700 again. Larger correction, obviously, but it wouldn't be the largest of the corrections that I'd be looking for. I would be looking for probably lower high continuation from there and expansion on the weekly down in a mean reversion fashion. Um, potentially down all the way to, if anywhere below the 710 retest of the highs, 700 fails, 695 to 700 fails, that opens up 675, 680 as a very high probability area to be looking in. But on breakouts back to the upside, breakouts above the highs, I would be looking eventually for price to work its way towards the 780, 790 region by the upper second, as this is an expanding posture for SPY. NASDAQ, and NASDAQ might be giving it away. Honestly, let's take a look. Yeah, this is already lower high, lower low structure, but right back to kind of the same general area. Maybe it goes for a gap fill. It'd be fine around 28. If it starts closing below there, this looks like it wants to expand to the downside, to be quite honest, into the mid to low 27s. And I would really be watching it carefully. Dow, lower low, lower high structure, but still fine around the 52, 51.8 area. If it starts to break down, then it's, mid 51s down to 51.3. If it drops it, we're looking at, 50,500 to 50K pretty quickly. And then it's all about watching around the 50K region to that 49.9. So nothing too crazy, nothing that we haven't talked about well ahead of time in terms of what to look for and what to expect. Um, and now it's about, do we see oil continue to head up, and do we see Dixie regain strength towards the 101 to 102 area and potentially a breakout above? That would probably provide for much larger corrections in the equities markets. And look, I it's a bear market for cryptocurrencies. So enjoy the opportunity to buy things on the cheap here and lower, and expect lower even if we don't get it, because then if we start to meet the conditions for structural changes on higher term timeframes, which obviously we can get a good feel for on weeklies as they move into monthlies, or any kind of monthly trend breaks or anything like that that turn into higher low reversal setups, stuff like that, or equal low reversal setups. No, those are the things that you want to pay attention to. So we do have the luxury of time right now to evaluate price action. This is when you want to be here, when you want to have a plan for how you're going to stack for the longer term. Obviously, not financial advice. You need to have your own plan and execute that plan. But let me go ahead over and take a look at the chat real quick. When 680, 680 for SPY could be in the cards on a larger correction if it were to occur from this area, in my opinion. Yeah, definitely, definitely would be, taking it level by level and waiting for expansion conditions to kick off. But I would definitely be looking, 680, 685, potentially even down below there. I look at gold. Yeah, let's take a look at gold real quick. We can take a look at silver too. I had some good gold trades that I was getting in. We were talking about the initial bounce off of 4,000, not too long ago on Spaces. right now it's compressing into the $4,000 area, the 3,900 to $4,000 area on the daily. Um, could it bottom out here? I would be acutely aware of that, in fact, but it doesn't show signs of it at this particular moment from what I'm seeing. So I really would just be paying attention to if we drop the lows, it's going to be expansion into the 38 to 3,900 level. And if we start to see expansion on closes below around 38, 75 to 39, I would be looking for this to head down probably, probably significantly, to be quite honest. That would be a larger expansion to the downside. Let's look at the weekly. Yeah, so if it drops, yeah, 35, 36 is in the cards, price replace band on the monthly. If it were to especially drop not just weeklies, but if it started to close monthlies under like 39 and, you can give it room like 38.50, then I would be looking for 3,500, potentially more being in the cards, for gold to the downside. But if this area does hold up, the criteria is really clear, especially on a monthly time frame. Any kind of closes, back above the spike lower high, which by the way, this isn't a confirmed lower high yet. We wouldn't really be able to evaluate that until we saw any kind of closes below 4,021 bucks. But I would say that, above 4,200, we could pretty safely look 4,250 to 44 and potentially even 45, back towards mean reversion, back towards the basis up here, would be pretty clear from a monthly time frame. Now, obviously, or a monthly and weekly time frame. This is a weekly, sorry. Um, Weekly start closing below there. Yeah, monthly would be, monthly would be, maybe you could give it a zone around 35 to 38, some mean reversion back to the basis. But if this becomes a bottoming area and that 39 to 4K, oh boy, watch for structural changes on that weekly. And this thing could absolutely cook back to the upside. So, doesn't mean it's going to go and make new highs, but it could absolutely bounce aggressively for quite some time back to the upside. Something I would be watching for, but it's right in like a key area. So it's either, it's kind of do or die here pretty soon. You wouldn't want to see monthlies below here, weeklies below here. Weekly did actually confirm the lower high, so I misspoke just a few moments ago. So above 4,200, probably pretty safe to look 4,250 to 44, and maybe even extend that to 45, and then kind of see what that would look like for the monthly, as we are in the back half of the month now, and then if we start to see any kind of closes on continuation below around the 38.50 level, then I would, that opens up 35 to 38 even, as a primary zone, with the potential for more on any kind of weekly expansion. So I would be very, very aware of that. Silver, came right down to the $55 level essentially. What did we get on the actual low? We actually got 54.77 on the low. If this breaks down, I'm looking 48 to 50 bucks. On the weekly, lower third is right in there. We're not getting an expansive structure here. So lower high gets taken out at 63. You can look up to 70, potentially even 74, 75 bucks, an ounce. But if we do get continuation, 48 to 50 first, and then potentially lower 40s, 42, 45 from there. Um, pretty straightforward stuff. Not really difficult to read some of this price action. Now I know that there are a lot of bidders that were, claiming that they were going to come into this particular zone and bid. We'll see if that holds true next week, and it's really gonna, in my opinion, come down to what's happening, in the oil trade. And for those that do watch currency markets, I'd be paying very close attention. Obviously, Japan, um, and then watching the bond markets pretty closely as well. So yeah, let's see. We're about 30 minutes in. Not too many people today. I do appreciate. There's like 200 people in here or something. I appreciate everybody that's coming through. If there's any other questions, go ahead and throw it in the chat. I know X has been like pretty buggy lately. I've been having trouble getting getting onto spaces from my phone. Just weird bugs. Like I can't get on. I can't nobody can even see me in the space, but I can see everybody else and then I request and it doesn't get it throws an error. I've tried like on my mobile network, on Starlink, on Wi-Fi. I've tried, rolling back updates on the phone, trying beta versions of updates on the phone. And I've even, uninstalled and reinstalled the X application. Still all kinds of problems. Get up on stage, and then if I actually make it on stage from a phone, I can't actually unmute or I can't mute, and the microphone's just open the whole time. Just really weird bugs. Not sure if that's user error or if anybody else is experiencing that. But yeah, so it's been X has been kind of all over the place, and then even earlier today from the web browser side of things, I just like retry your feed, like nothing was there. I'm like, okay, great, awesome, great stuff, awesome, well working product all the time. Although there has been some cool stuff that's been going on with it. Obviously, we can see our friends, our mutuals, our mutual followers, those that follow us that we also follow back, we can see them again. So it has been fun to kind of reconnect with people that, the algorithm essentially was hiding us from each other, which was pretty interesting. Um, you know, it's also kind of dystopian when you think about it, but it is what it is. Got to roll with it. Um, I'm curious. I got some time here, so let's actually go to some lower term time frames for Bitcoin. Let's look at this 4 hour. So 4 hour is probably going to have momentum back to the upside, but of course, this is a downtrending 4 hour structure, and it is a mean reversion back to the base. So realistically, we just need to hold the lows at 62 and a half, try to put in a higher low and change structure um, above the high here. If it doesn't get continuation, of course, but if it does paint a 4 hour closing high up here around the 64, 240, 250 area, what you'd want to see as momentum did kind of get tapped to the downside, but as long as it holds this low, then you can look for like a reversal setup like that. Maybe head back towards 65 over the weekend. I would be, of course, very careful in low liquidity environments. Um, we're looking at, yeah, so momentum reset coming off the bearish control zone. Yeah, so I would be looking for something like that. Otherwise, of course, if we do fall through, and or, this is a lower low, lower high. If it does confirm a low, obviously it's going to confirm a lower high, in my opinion. Um, be aware of something like, you know, this, right? That starts to head down and break the lows, break into the lows and potentially lower over the weekend. Um, that's when momentum is tapped out to the downside over a weekend, typically we get mean reversion back to the upside and then we dump it out at the start of the new week, but that's not always the case. It is something to pay attention to with this daily. One of the big things that I'm looking at here, obviously, if we were to close anywhere above 64, 364, 370 or whatever that is up there, we would get on a close, a technical higher low and a nice buyback off the basis band, but it would be all about continuation above 65, right? Like there's no, and especially above that 65 and a half, 65, 6, 7 area. We have momentum turned, but we could always see this flip back up with another higher low over the weekend. But I would just be very wary of any kind of failures around 65 to 65 and a half. If you do start to see that develop over the weekend or coming into like the open on Monday and in terms of market open for the Monday session. Because it doesn't look great. I am wondering, what is the 2-day starting to show? 2 days, just a flat range. Yeah, and this could easily fall right over, but it could also make its way towards 68, even on expansion, give us some more. But I'd be very aware of this. This is a, essentially a symmetrical range to the top and bottom for the bands here. So drop the lows, we're looking 61 down to 59. So essentially, I'd be roping in 58, and even the lows are being roped in with this. So any kind of close down there, it's going to be running these lows. Was a 3-day showing. Yeah, mean reversion on the 3-day, nearly a perfect tap on the basis band. We got a fresh. Now this is pointed up for momentum. That doesn't mean a lot right now. Obviously, daily structure is what's going to dictate if we get any continuation. This is expansion on the 4-day. We haven't quite seen mean reversion. That's going to be around 68, 68.5. So again, 68 to 70. Downside looking towards the low 50s now. And even further on a lower third on true expansion below the lower second. It's coming off of a pretty deep momentum wave there for a regular Stoke. 5-day looks like it could try to peak back up towards the 70K region, but I'd be very wary of it again. Now for the 5-day, what I do find interesting is that if we did start to see any kind of 5-day structure changes, pay very close attention to the weekly. So 67, 260, $68,000 on closes for the 5-day, which has 2 days to go. So we'll see that close on Monday. Look pretty interesting. Downside showing 55K to retest the lower second, which is right in the pocket for that 54 to 56 on those weeklies that I was showing earlier. Weekly, of course, right at the lows, any continuation, you're looking 48 to 50 on the weekly. Again, lower high, take that out on a close, get a structure change. Maybe we got a shot. But realistically, if it was going to happen here, what I would need to see on any kind of a weekly structure change is something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. It doesn't have to retrace all the way back to lows, but something like this to go and test, further up, 70 to 72 and potentially more into that 2K at a time, 72 to 74, 74 to 76 by the upper first. But realistically, this is compression to re-expansion around a major low side area of interest. So it's just, Bitcoin's doing a whole lot of nothing the past 2 weeks in this area. So it's kind of hurry up and wait, right? Let me go back and look here. Can't hear anything. Wait, can you guys hear me? Can you let me know in the chat if you can hear me? Uh-oh. What's going on? It's working now? What happened? You lost me for a minute? Well, that's not cool. What was the last thing you guys heard? Because I was moving kind of fast there. That's a restream thing right there. Sorry about that. I can take a look at ETH in a minute. But I want to know what the last thing was that you guys heard. The 5-day. Okay. Crap. All right. Well, let me backtrack a little bit then. It looks like restream. Okay. Yeah, it does show me that there was some issue. I didn't see the notification. On the weekly, one of the things to pay attention to is what I was saying is if this is going to confirm a low, what you would want to be looking for is a lower high. I'm sorry, a higher high as it relates to this last lower high spike. This is technically one continuation move down. You can make a case for the swing structure here. Um, this swing lower high to swing lower low. And then what you would want to see is mean reversion back to the 68 to 70 region, put in a higher low, and then try for those higher levels from a weekly perspective. In my opinion, if this is going to be the area, if we don't get continuation, obviously on the other side of that would just be continuation, right? It continues or it comes up even further and then, slimes down. But within the 5-day, I think I might have pointed out in the 5-day, we could get some, obviously we could get some earlier indications as the lower first is recaptured, if it is recaptured and held on closes and then maintained, where we do have a confirmed closing lower high, not really just a consolidation before a move lower. With swing structure, it's actually a closing lower high. So if it is taken out, then we can look for that pattern on the 5-day start to play out in terms of a trend break to trend reversal setup. Um, Provided we don't see continuation below the lows, right? And so then you look at that mean reversion and then you look for potentially higher prices after a trend reversal setup. And this is just an example. This isn't exactly what I'd be looking for. I'd just be gauging it based off of a trend break as it relates to, you get a higher high, you look for the trend reversal in higher, lower, equal low fashion, right? We're going to get a weekly, obviously, closing. We'll see if we close the low on the weekly. Again, I need to see, as I mentioned earlier, for the weekly, for me personally, I would want to see above that 65, 6 to 7 region closed above. That would close the low, and then we could entertain moves to that lower high, right? So where it would close a lower low on the weekly, you could expect that the next move would likely be around that $68,000 at minimum to test this next high, which would be the 5-day lower high at 67,260. If we got to close above, you could look for a trend break to then entertain the possibility on any moves back down, looking for higher, lower, equal low structure. Hopefully the stream is still holding up. So yeah, just getting a little bit more detail in there on price action of kind of how I take a look and kind of put all these things together. Now, of course, it's all going to be predicated on what I want to see on the daily closes as it relates to these higher term time frame closes as they come in and close with the dailies. So, but as I've mentioned over and over again, there's nothing doing below 74 on the monthly, in my opinion, on closes. So granted, we could see something like monthly that technically, right now, until we see where this monthly closes, that it's going to be 74 to even get a technical closing low. So, the bias is still very heavily towards further downside, but excuse me, but it's all about paying attention to these lower term timeframes as it relates to the monthly as we are in the back half of the month here. So you guys let me know if you got all that or heard all that in the chat there. Um, and if you have any questions for me or if you want me to clarify anything, let me know. I'll give you a second to catch up because I know it lags behind a little bit here. And then, of course, like and share this out there. There's going to be people that primarily most of the audience expects the videos at their regular cadence. I think people are still getting used to the hour earlier for the live streams on Fridays. Um, and also, I didn't really get out there earlier in the week and promote that I was going to do the live stream this Friday. I was kind of behind the ball. I didn't reach out to potential guests either, so that was my fault. Just very very busy this week. Um, but yeah, if you're still in the chat and you'd like to let me know if you have any questions about kind of the picture that I'm painting here, or I'm sorry, the squiggly lines that I'm drawing, the crayon eating that I'm doing, you go ahead and let me know. So, if not, if there isn't any questions about that, I'll start wrapping this up. Got it all? Awesome. Appreciate you. And shout out to everybody that's coming to hang out. I appreciate you. I know some of you just passively watch and some of you are jumping in chat. Um, it is a Friday. I do appreciate that you take some time to come and stare at charts with me on Fridays. And hopefully next week, I'm trying to nail down a time to see if Mr. Spread and I can do a recorded video because this is like the middle of the night for him. So I can't get him on a live stream necessarily, but I would love to actually do a video with him, check in with him. I've gone and spoken with him to his community and stuff like that. I would love to have him come over and go over the charts and just we have a lot of fun and really good, interesting conversations. I really love the way that he breaks things down. He's got a completely different style and system than I do for evaluating price action. And yeah, trying to get that together. That would actually be a special episode of the market update because we'd be doing a recording together. And at some point it's going to happen. It's just I'd like to see if we can do it sooner rather than later. Um, because it would just be for me for me it's honestly it's for me. I want to see other people's analysis. Um, it really does help me um, in some cases break biases. Um, it helps me also explain my thesis better and describe how I'm looking at it and what my approach is much better as well. So, there's never always take the time to improve and bounce ideas off of your peers. And he's one of the goats in the game. Obviously, you're all well aware of Bits of Wealth, Ash, Nat, and others that have come and joined me here on this live stream. Obviously, a lot of the trading crew and the technical analysis crew from Wolf Bitcoin, and a big shout out to Cade and the crew over there. Much love to you all, and of course, a big shout out to David Gockstein. Had a lot of fun joking around with him, and then having some serious conversation with him on his show. Obviously, his show's all week this week, but in particular today was pretty funny. Um, and then obviously had some fun with Rob there as well. And then, as always, never forget about the crew over at ATC All Things Crypto. We had a really funny show yesterday. Obviously, it's always a great time over there with the ATC crew, but I think on Thursdays we get a little wild, so that was a good show as well. So big shout out to everybody. Big shout out to you who watched this. Please, of course, again, like and share this out there if you did find this information helpful. I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, and above all, stay safe. And I will be back here on Monday to talk to you again and cover price action and all kinds of fun stuff. And yeah, and you know what I'll do, Milo? I just looked back through the chat and I saw you were asking about IWM. I'll take a look at IWM on Monday and give you my thoughts on that in the recorded video. Do me a favor, just ping me in the chat too, so that I remember. And yeah, my apologies for I just scrolled back through to look, and Yeah, because we're running across multiple streams here with multiple chats. So, but I do appreciate you. And yeah, have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out. Take care. Talk to you Monday.